Hello everyone, and thank you for coming to watch this video. I'll be talking about a field notice that Cisco just released. This field notice has to do with Cisco iOS and iOS XE self-signed certificates that will expire on January 1st, 2020. Not everyone will be impacted by this field notice because not everybody is using certificates. However, there are some people out there that are using self-signed certificates, and they're using them with some of the features that are expected to have some level of impact come January 1st, 2020. Let's do a quick summary of what I'll discuss in this video. I'll be taking a look at the field notice. I'll take a look at some other external documentation that we have listed right here. And I'll also talk a little bit about the bug here itself. Then we'll talk about the features, different features that we know use the TLS. We'll talk about some Q&A. I'll be putting the links for these three different documents in the description of this video. Let's go ahead and start with taking a look at the field notice. And when we take a look at the top here, you can see that they talk about products that are affected, their affected OS type, affected software product, and the affected release. And then they have some comments over here as well. We'll scroll on down past all of this and we'll get to the good stuff. The bug ID is here. The problem description is here as well, and they talk about self-signed X509 PKI certificates, and then throughout the document we'll reference it as SSC for self-signed certificate. They then let us know that any self-signed certificates that were generated on devices that run Cisco iOS or Cisco iOS XE, they're going to expire on January 1st, 2020, right after midnight. Right? So you have up until December 31st to address this issue if you are in a scenario where you may be impacted by it. Now, the next paragraph, they make something very clear. This issue affects only self-signed certificates that were generated on an iOS or iOS XE software version that does not have the fix for this particular bug. The next sentence in this paragraph is also very important because it lets you know that certificates that were generated by a certificate authority, which includes those certificates generated by a Cisco iOS certificate authority feature, are not impacted, right? That's also important because this comes around to be part of the workarounds in the bug later. This particular piece here, where they mention that the Cisco iOS CA feature, that's going to be part of workaround number 3 in the bug. And the final piece of criteria here mentioned in the note is that you have to be on an impacted version of software, you have to be using self-signed certs, and the self-signed certificate must be applied to one or more features outlined below. So they give us a list of features that may be impacted if you're using the self-signed certs and you're on a software version which is impacted. I'm going to skip the background section and we're going to move on straight to taking a look at some of the general features. HTTP server over TLS, SSH server, users who use X509 certificates to authenticate the SSH session, it might fail to authenticate. Now they make an important note here that this use of X509 certificates is very rare. Most people, I think, are doing the username or password authentication. So SSH can still work unless you're doing the using the certificates to authenticate the SSH session. RESTconf connections might also fail. Now we're moving out of the general features and getting more into some of the specialized things, which I'm a collaboration guy. So these features here take my interest, right? They talk about using SIP over TLS, secure CME, secure SRST, secure media resources, and some of the other secure protocols as well. And then we have some wireless stuff here, and they go into the problem symptoms. What types of things would you expect to see if you are impacted by this bug? Which I'm very happy that they did that, because taking a look at this list, you can see some of the scenarios of things that may happen when when January 1st comes around, right? These are some things that may be expected if you are in the scenario of being impacted. And now we get into the different workarounds and solutions. There's some things that I would like to note about workaround number 1. If you're impacted by this bug, then you're using self-signed certificates. If you move over to using CA signed certificates, which are from an external CA, a public CA, then you're going to have to cough up some money. That's my main concern about the workaround number 1. However, they are correct here where they say use of a CA to sign certificates is considered to be a security best practice, which if you're doing anything secure, it's kind of a half-baked job if you're using self-signed certificates. When you're looking to do legit secure environment, then you should be using a CA signed certificate. And that's why they mention the best practice here. And now they go on to show us how to install a certificate that is signed by a third-party CA. Now we can scroll a little further down to workaround number 2, where they say use the local Cisco iOS CA server to generate and sign a new certificate. So workaround number 2 is basically having the router function as a certificate authority itself, which if you look at the bug, I believe that's workaround number 3. And so workaround number 1 in the field notice is actually workaround number 2 here. And that makes sense, right? Because ideally, number 1 should be upgrade to a fixed release. That's actually where everybody should be aiming to go. However, it's only a couple weeks until January 1st, so some people may not have enough time to go through their typical upgrade process. Let's move on to workaround number 3. This is showing us how to use OpenSSL to get a PKCS 12 certificate bundle and import that over to the iOS and iOS XE routers. And this part right here is going to be very important for everyone. They talk about how to actually identify whether or not you are impacted here. And you can see here in bold, enrollment self-signed, right? So when you run this command, show running config, begin crypto, you want to find the crypto trust point configuration. And in the crypto trust point configuration, look for the trust point enrollment config. And that's going to tell you right here, if it says enrollment self-signed, that's something that you would be, basically raising a red flag for you. Now, it lets us know that if it's not self-signed, the device is not impacted by this field notice and no action is needed. If it is configured as self-signed, and if the self-signed certificate appears in the configuration, the device might be impacted by this field notice. Continue on to step 4, right? So again, I'm not going to go through this entire field notice, but I do want people to get out and go review it and make sure that they're all right. It shows you how, for the different features that were listed out earlier, it shows you how to go about actually confirming whether or not those features are using the self-signed certificate. Again, I'll be putting these 3 different links into the description of my video, and then below it, I'll be putting the list of questions and answers so that folks can reference it and get a better understanding of this and, maybe answer some of their things without having to rely on somebody else. Or, the Q&A here might help you uncover some other questions that you have. And, that would allow you to then engage Cisco, which the field notice actually states how to go about engaging Cisco over here. And I'm actually thinking about going and firing up my router and going through and doing a video about how to do workaround number 3 from the bug here so that people can be more familiar with that. If that's something that folks would like to see, please comment down below and let me know that you're interested in that. And I'd like to thank you for watching this video. If you like the content, please consider subscribing to the channel. And don't forget to get out there and read the field notice, read the other 2 documents, the bug and the technical document there. Make sure you're familiar with this. Make sure you're not going to be impacted, and make sure that you're not finding yourself in that hairy situation on January 1st. I suppose one good thing about it happening on January 1st is that there may not be as many people at work. So if there is impact, that would be helpful for us in the technical community, that there's not as many people in the office trying to use the features